Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ways and Means in the Morning. So I think we can go ahead and get started. We are missing a couple of members, but I'm sure they're going to show up at the appropriate time. So with that, I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Staff, if you could please call the roll.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, Assemblyman Frierson, Assemblywoman Gorlow,
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Howdy,
Here.
Assemblyman Levitt, Assemblywoman Miller,
Here.
Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno,
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters,
Here.
Assemblyman Roberts, Assemblywoman Titus, Assemblywoman Tolles,
Here.
Assemblyman Watts, Chair Carlton.
And I am here. So with that, committee members, this morning, we have 6 bills. Just to let everyone know, AB 480 and AB 482, we will be taking last. We want to get the other ones out of the way so that we can keep going. And as we have done in the past, a number of these, I believe, can be heard and spun around and sent right back out. So that's kind of the goal for the next couple of weeks, is to just keep everything moving. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and start with Assembly Bill 471. And I am looking for my list to see who's doing what here. Assembly Bill 471. Who do we have presenting on Assembly Bill 471? Oh, good morning, there you are. Had to flip the screen a couple times to find the right group of people. Good morning, ladies. Please, tell you what, why don't we have Ms. Kaufman give us a brief walkthrough, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to questions. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 471 provides a fee to be imposed on applicants for the issuance of or renewal of a certificate of authorization for a radiation machine for mammography. This is a budget implementation bill. The Nevada Central Cancer Registry proposes a fee increase to operators of mammography and radiation machines to address the solvency issues the budget has been experiencing over the last several biennia.
Thank you very much. So, who would like to just give us a high-level overview, and then we'll open it up for questions. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Carlton and members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. My name is Julia Peak, and I serve as one of the Deputy Administrators with the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. Today, our team is here to present and answer questions on Assembly Bill 471. AB 471 is a bill reflecting many years in the making for our Nevada Central Cancer Registry, or NCCR. To provide a brief history of the registry, timely and complete cancer data are used to evaluate the appropriateness of measures for the prevention and control of cancer and conducting comprehensive epidemiological surveys of cancer and cancer-related deaths statewide and nationally. Our NCCR annually compiles comprehensive cancer data for all years of operation and submits the reports to the Centers for Disease Control and the North American Association for Cancer Registries. This is used for analysis, certifications, and inclusion in national cancer data. It's a vital tool for monitoring the incidence of cancer within our state and sharing this information with healthcare providers, researchers, and the general public. The registry has had a variety of funding sources over the years, from fees to federal grants to general fund. The registry used to charge a fee to hospitals for each case of cancer they successfully reported to the registry. At that time, most of the cancer cases were diagnosed and treated in a hospital setting. So this model really supported complete reporting and the staffing needs of the registry. We changed this model in statute, though, so as to not penalize correct reporting from the hospital. So that fee to the hospitals for correct reporting was removed. Over this time, the diagnosis and treatment of cancer changed, so cases could now be diagnosed and treated outside a hospital setting. With this change, there was confusion around who should report what and who couldn't be penalized for not reporting. During this time, the registry also depleted the reserve, so could no longer provide the staffing support needed based on the number of cases we had to report. That brings us to last session, where DPDH requested general fund to support positions for the registry. We also started to receive case reports from large outpatient cancer treatment facilities, which gave us the number of cases we needed. We were approved for the requested positions, but for only 1 year of the biennium, and were required to report on progress of developing a sustainable fee-based registry through a letter of intent. Over the course of the biennium, we worked hard with the stakeholders to develop the most reasonable and equitable fee system to sustain the registry, and that is outlined in this bill. I'm happy to walk through the sections of the bill, Chair, if you'd like, or I can pause and just speak a little bit more to the budgetary aspect of the bill.
Go ahead and just give us a little bit of a walkthrough on the bill. This has been an ongoing issue over a number of biennium, and I'm very happy to see that I think we're finally where we need to be sustainable in the future and have there be a real nexus to the fees and actually what we're trying to accomplish. So if you would give us just a real high-level overview in the bill, and then I'll open it up to questions from the members. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair, and I agree with you. Within Section 1 is defined in NRS 449, a fee will be assessed for each reapplication from a surgical center for ambulatory patients, facility for the treatment of irreversible renal disease, facility for hospice care, program of hospice care, hospital facility for intermediate care, facility for skilled nursing, agency to provide personal care in the home or rural clinic. Within Section 2, as defined in NRS 457, we have clarified the language on what entities must report to the registry, as this has caused confusion in the past. This will now include a provider of healthcare as defined in NRS 629, as well as other treatment facility, which has been added and defined. Within Section 3, the Board of Health will prescribe the fee assessed to the facilities and providers noted above. Within Section 4, the language was removed that was confusing related to cases being referred between providers and who had the obligation to report that information. Section 5 notes the fee will be assessed for mammography and other radiological machines, surgical center for ambulatory patients. Again, I could read that list, but it's the same as noted above. Section 6 and 7 align the former language for reporting with the new language to note reporting requirements, again, for that provider of healthcare and that new definition of other treatment provider. Sections 8 and 9 notes the fee imposed on radiation machines and medical laboratories. For the budgetary aspects of this bill, the agency will charge a 6% fee to the renewal fee through this biennium, but no more than 8%. As defined in the bill, we thought it important to put a maximum within that language. This will allow our registry to collect the funding needed to support the 2 positions that were approved in the DPBH budget, again, contingent upon approval of this bill. Just to give you an idea of what that fee might look like, the lowest fee charged will be $8 per year for a dental machine renewal. The highest charge will be $438 per year, and that'll be to a hospital. I want to thank the many people who came to the table to help support the development of this concept and who have supported the registry over the past many years. That concludes my written testimony, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is a budget implementation bill, so the conversation around the budget has already happened in the subcommittee. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up. Dr. Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Peak, for that information. This surely has been a roller coaster ride on how to fund this this agency or this department. And just for clarification, because this is a different model than what we have heard in the past, where in the past the providers who diagnosed a cancer would be charged a fee for every cancer diagnosis. For example, myself, if I cut off a skin cancer in somebody, who would want to report that because you'd be charging me a fee to report that. So it was underreported. So you're taking that model, and just to be clear now, it's just the facilities when they renew their license and not a provider when they renew their license? Question?
Chair, through you to Dr. Titus. Sorry, Julia Peak for the record. Dr. Titus, again, thank you for all your work on this registry over the years. So you're absolutely correct. I'll start with the end of your question. So we don't license providers per se. So a dermatologist, DPBH doesn't license those. So they would not be charged. It will be what's been identified as a treatment provider in that section. And then also what's been defined as a provider of healthcare. It's a confusing term because it would imply that it's an individual doctor's office. And then the second part of your question, and I think that was so important in this new model, is you'd be assessed an annual fee of no more than 8% with your renewal of the license, again, for those entities. You would not be charged an unknown fee based on the number of cases you report to us. And we feel, and the stakeholders feel, that that's a better, more sustainable model, because then you are encouraged to report, which is absolutely essential. And you would just be investing a small dollar amount annually to support the registry. I'll also note that last session we came forward actually requesting reposition, and we had the conversation with you as well. It included an administrative assistant, and that person would help us do data entry. But we've moved forward really well in getting electronic reporting. So we're really looking forward to that. You'll see that position has not been included. The other model that we looked at during the biennium, again, was billing in the way Dr. Titus described. Billing is a ton of work. And so that would require at least one AA. When we billed the hospitals in the past, that was a full-time AA. And so what we've been able to do with this model is actually eliminate that position, because this billing would be utilized through HCQC and our radiological health services program. So it's no additional workload for us. So we've actually saved a position in the model that's presented in front of you.
Follow up, Madam Chair? So then this is the fiscal committee, and the issue has been not the importance of the cancer registry, but the sustainability of it, and trying to find the correct model to gather the most information, most accurate information, and keep it funded. So with the $6 fee, maximum $8 fee, do you, and obviously you know how many facilities this would affect, is that the model that you feel this thing will be sustainable in 2 years? We won't have to look at a new funding model? How much, I guess, how much, will there be enough revenue generated with this formula, the 6 to the 8, that you feel will be sustainable at least in the near couple bienniums?
Julia Peak, for the record, we certainly do. Again, the 8% would generate the revenue to sustain at least 2 positions, if not more, with cost of living increases and other things. One of the things with cancer reporting that I didn't note is, unlike infectious disease reporting, where we report truly the burden that comes into the state and we report that up to our federal partners, within the cancer registry, they tell you at CDC how many cases they expect you to report each year. And that goes up minimally each year. As you know, cancer is a chronic disease and take many years to develop. And so the next several years, we wouldn't expect a great increase on the number of cases we'd see. Also, our hospitals and other providers are getting much more complete with their reporting. In some cases, we get batch files, and so that requires less work. The more we can get to report electronically, again, the less work. And so we can focus on quality improvement, data analysis, technical assistance, those kind of things. So long answer to say, we do feel that this is a sustainable model. If approved, we don't see any reason we'd have to come back and talk about the cancer registry, as we have done for many years, outside of just noting the success of the program.
Thank you. Thank you for that and all your hard work with this. And thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
You're welcome. And ladies, could you help me remember, when did we set up the cancer registry? I'm just trying to remember the conversation about that.
Yeah, Julia Peak, for the record, my colleagues who are much smarter than me say 1995.
Okay, thank you. All right, so committee members, any other questions at this time? Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I may have got lost in all that dialogue before. So right now, doctors do pay a fee, and we're going to eliminate that fee and then switch over to this new system?
Julia Peak, for the record, great question. So there right now within statute says that we can charge a flat fee of $250 for each case we abstract. There is confusion about who can we assess that fee to and who's required to report and other things. So we've not charged that fee. So no providers right now are being charged a fee for reporting. This model would develop a way to sustain the registry. We do need funds. We do need to support 2 positions. We're not doing that right now through charging that $250 fee. We'd like to charge, as was noted, a much lesser fee that's known.
Thank you for the answer, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. Appreciate it.
Welcome. With that, committee members, any other questions at this time? Seeing no others. So with that, this is the hearing for Assembly Bill 471. So we'll go ahead and open it up. Is there anyone in the room wishing to testify on Assembly Bill 471? Not seeing anyone. Broadcast services, do we have anyone on Zoom or an audio in support of Assembly Bill 471?
If you would like to testify in support on AB 471, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 720. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
For the record, Carrie Harrington, that's spelled Carihington. I'm the Executive Director for Nevada Cancer Coalition. So on behalf, I did submit my testimony, so you should see that in the notes on this bill. And we highly support AB 471. In fact, the Nevada Cancer Coalition and partners have been working with Ms. Peak for years to continually update our policies regarding our Central Cancer Registry. The registry has grown to meet the needs of our growing state, so we highly support finding funding sources for this. We were the only state actually charging reporters to report into the registry, which unfortunately was a huge barrier. So we are very grateful we were able to remove that, and as such have thoroughly increased our capacity to gather cancer data in our state. So we're really excited about this opportunity to better fund the registry, and we thank you for your attention to this bill.
Thank you very much. Broadcast services, anyone else in support of Assembly Bill 471?
Chair, there are no more callers in support on AB 471.
If we could open it up to opposition, please.
If you wish to testify in opposition to AB 471, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in opposition to AB 471.
And those in neutral, please.
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on AB 471, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on AB 471.
Thank you very much. Ladies, do you have any closing comments on Assembly Bill 471?
Julia Peak, for the record, I again just want to thank all of you who've been doing this with us, at least me in particular, for the last decade. We do think that this will be successful for the registry, so appreciate your time and attention on this.
And thank you very much for all of your work on it. So with that, we will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 471. And committee members, there'll be further discussion about this bill later on in the meeting. So with that, I believe we can go to Assembly Bill 479. I'll turn it over to Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 479 creates a position of the Chief Investment Officer as a member of the executive staff of the Public Employees Retirement System. In regards to the fiscal impact, on May 3rd, the Money Committees approved the addition of this Chief Investment Officer to the Public Employees Retirement System. AB 479 adds this position to the list of positions in NRS 286.160 of positions whose salaries are approved by the PERS Board as well as the Interim Retirement and Benefits Committee.
With that, we can go ahead and proceed. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Tina Liss, I'm the Executive Officer of the Public Employees Retirement System. AB 479 implements a new position requested by the Retirement Board in the budget process. Currently, the retirement system has one investment staff member. This bill would add an additional investment staff member. The cost associated with this was included in the proposed budget submitted by the retirement board, and revenue for the system's administrative budget is from transfers from the trust fund on a per capita basis. The system currently has an investment officer in NRS 286-160. Section 1 of the bill would add the position of Chief Investment Officer and rename the current investment officer position to Deputy Investment Officer. The Chief Investment Officer would have a maximum salary one step above the maximum of the Deputy Investment Officer. Section 2 of the bill makes a conforming change to NRS 286-170, and Section 3 provides for the initial salary of the position to be as approved in the budget process. When determining which positions are needed to most efficiently administer the system, the Retirement Board considers factors including succession planning, continuity of governance, financial control, separation of duties, coverage, and cost efficiency. An additional investment employee would eliminate the potential exposure to the system should the current investment officer suddenly leave or for whatever reason become unable to perform his duties. In addition, a second investment employee would facilitate enhanced financial controls, which are not possible under a single employee structure. An additional investment employee would also provide a viable succession plan to help ensure the underlying investment program, philosophy, and culture, which has produced one of the most competitive track records in the industry, does endure once our current investment officer retires or moves on. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have about this position.
Right. So with that, committee members, we'll go ahead and open it up for any questions. I believe this just the budget discussion was the pitcher. This is the catcher. This is how we complete the cycle to get this done. So are there any questions from any of the committee members at this time? Not seeing any question. Good job, Ms. Lees. You got them all quiet, so they're there. So this is the hearing for Assembly Bill 479. We'll go ahead and open it up for the hearing. Not seeing anyone here in the room to testify on Assembly 479, we'll go ahead and open it to Zoom or audio. Broadcast services, could we go to those in support of Assembly Bill 479, please?
Anyone wishing to testify in support on AB 479, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in support on AB 479.
Thank you very much. Could we open it up to those in opposition, please?
If you wish to testify in opposition to AB 479, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in opposition to AB 479.
And with that, if we could open it up to neutral.
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on AB 479, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on AB 479.
So with that, Ms. Lees, did you have any closing comments or think we're good?
Just thank you for considering this bill, and it's a very important priority of the Retirement Board, and we appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you being available for us this morning. So with that, committee members, we're going to go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 479, and you'll probably be seeing this one a little bit later also. So with that, I believe we're going to skip 480, as I mentioned earlier. 480 and 482 will be at the end of the agenda. So we are going to go to Assembly Bill 481. I'll turn it over to Ms. Kaufman, and then we'll proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 481 requires the Division of Child and Family Services of the Department of Health and Human Services, to the extent that money is available and for the purposes of collaboration with persons and entities that advocate for the need of victims, to designate a statewide center to provide assistance to victims. And with regards to the fiscal impact, the Money Committee has recommended approval of a budget amendment that was submitted by the Governor's Finance Office on April 17th to provide $132,102 in fiscal year 2023 to support 2 new state positions beginning in October of 2022 to be located within the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center in Las Vegas. The funding is primarily funded through the Victims of Crime Act Assistance Grant, with general fund component providing the federal requirement match of 20%.
With that, Mr. Armstrong, nice to see you. Would you like to go ahead and proceed?
Good morning,
please?
Chair Carl. Yeah, good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee, Ross Armstrong, Administrator of the Division of Child and Family Services. On October 1st, 2017, Nevada experienced the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. Since that tragedy, there have been lots of lessons, especially for government agencies, and government agencies at all levels continue to work on modification and improvements to better prepare for and respond to critical incidents throughout the state. AB 481 is one of those improvements. What the 1 October shooting quickly revealed and continues to reveal every day is the need for a designated victim center with processes, trained staff, and victim-centered approaches to respond to complex and significant needs. In terms of the actual AB 481, it requires the Division of Child and Family Services to designate a statewide victim center who collaborate with appropriate entities. It establishes the tasks for such a center, which includes but is not limited to responding to critical incidents throughout the state and serving as a training and technical assistance organization to all communities. It also allows for an account to be created and for the division to accept donations into that account for furthering the purposes of such a statewide victim center. At this time, I hand it off to Chief John Steinbeck and Barbara Buckley, who have been doing a tremendous amount of work since 1 October, the boots on the ground there in Clark County, to explain what the center has been doing and how this bill will help the people of the state of Nevada.
Okay, Ms. Buckley?
Madam Chair, I'll defer to Chief Steinbeck.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. This is John Steinbeck. I'm the fire chief of the Clark County Fire Department. I was also the incident commander for the Multi-Agency Coordination Center on the night of 1 October, as well as I ran the Family Assistance Center for the following 3 weeks. As was just discussed, this was the largest mass shooting in our nation's history. Well documented that we had 58 people brutally murdered that night. We had more than 800 that were injured. We had 24,000 that were terrified and terrorized and running through the streets. And then, of course, the entire community was really shook to their core, as many of you experienced and certainly shared those feelings with us. And maybe even some of you may have even been there that evening. What occurred following the shooting, of course, is we did immediate rescues. That's our primary objective following any incident is life safety. Just trying to separate people from the incident, trying to get medical care as quickly as possible, trying to get people to the hospitals. It was a combined public-private effort as many heroes, of course, stepped up and drove people in their personal cars and in their vehicles, all of which most of you certainly know, but I think that it adds context to what had occurred. As we try to do the incident stabilization, that comes with family reunification, getting people back together with the people that they came with, many of which had gone to the hospitals by means that we couldn't track. So it was very difficult, but it's very rudimentary at the beginning. It's who were you with? Where did you last see them? And you try to put them back together right out there, just away from the incident the best that you can. Also at the hospitals, and then of course at the police station. In those first few hours, as we tried to reunite people and unfortunately start to give some of the notifications about the deceased. Immediately, we opened up, well, as quickly as we could, we opened up what we call a Family Assistance Center at the Las Vegas Convention Center. This also served as the primary notification center for our coroner. We were in unified command there, but we also provided services there that we knew would be needed, and this included immediate counseling or crisis care, some of the registration for victims of crime, some immediate social services, the things that we wouldn't really think of as much, but travel and hotel assistance, getting people their personal effects back, and just really trying to problem solve for people as we could. We had representatives there from the FBI, the American Red Cross, and our own local social services, as well as many other participating agencies. And the Red Cross has run those type of incidents much more often than any of us, or at least taken part in them, along with some members of the FBI. And they stated that the Family Assistance Center can only stay open for about 14 days at max. But because of the scope of this, I went ahead and I kept it open for 20 days. But following that, we don't want to let people just tell them at that point in time, there's nothing more we can do for you. That we wanted to make sure that we were there to be able to assist those in need when they needed it, not on our timelines, because many people went home and they didn't come out for months. Many people returned to other states. We didn't know about them for months or even the following year. It's really on the victim's timeline as to when they need that assistance. And where was that going to come from? Well, following the model that Orlando had put together, because unfortunately now we had something that we never wanted to have in common with Orlando, as we took their place as the worst mass shooting site. They had built a resiliency center that was for that ongoing care. And so we immediately tried to also emulate that. And within that 20 days, we built a resiliency center that could then transition over and look more for the long-term care of the people that had suffered from that incident, and the family members and everybody that was traumatized. Our goal was to try to lessen suffering. The evil individual that inflicted this had a single goal of, as far as we could tell, and that was to cause suffering. Ours was to alleviate it in any way possible. And if that meant just trying to help with some legal issues that you might have, or going through some of the frustrations as to where you'll get your care, or trying to put you together with people in a group setting, then that was our goal. Whatever it was, walk in the door, you have a problem, how can we solve that problem? And ever since the beginning of the incident, we would assign a single individual to the survivor or to the survivor's family, so there was a single point of contact to always navigate through that, to again try to lessen that. And then we knew that we got a grant that supplied us for 3 years. Very, very difficult grant to navigate through, but we were able to get it through the Department of Justice. And as we've learned that this is certainly going to be much longer lasting than that. I've had the honor of responding to 9/11 as a rescuer in New York, and I still to this day get correspondence from them following that incident. So no one really knows how long that'll go on, or how long the aid will be needed from this incident. But it certainly wasn't lost on us that people suffer from these incidents every day. People that we want to give the same exact assistance. It just wasn't as wide scale, and didn't affect as many people. But if you lose a loved one or are injured in a random act of violence, you have the same exact needs that somebody that this occurred to there. we've really built something that I think we can be proud of, but more importantly, provides a service that's not provided anywhere else. And we want to have that for all of our residents and even visitors when needed, for forever. That'll be there, and it can be surged up so that we're not building from nothing as we were that morning when we have a tragic event anywhere within the state. We've got a team that can be we can surge with additional personnel and send to the incident. Certainly serve in those early hour capacities, and have a lot larger level of expertise than a fire chief does. Barbara and Tennille and her team has done an amazing job, and I just want to give 100% support for that, and in any way continue to add to these services, or add to this incredible resource that we have, and I hope that you can support that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Buckley?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Barbara Buckley. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. The chief and Ross put the need to you all very eloquently. It's been an honor to work with Clark County, emergency management, fire, social services, the state Department of Child and Family Services doing their behavioral health, and now victims of crime compensation function, Metro, and our Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada staff to provide long-term victim services to those affected by the October 1 shooting. Victim services is not very robust in the state of Nevada. We have pockets of excellence, especially in domestic violence, sexual assault, nascent efforts to assist in human trafficking. Certainly the DA's office, law enforcement have small victims of crime assistance, but that is it. And so when October 1 hit, there was no comprehensive victim services trained and ready to assist victims. There is also no comprehensive victim support for other violent felonies. If there is a home invasion with a murder of a family member, there is no center to serve these victims. In the aftermath of October 1, having the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center available for long-term support of the survivors and families of victims of October 1, and to assist where there are no current services for victims of violent felonies will ensure that the landscape for victim services can change, that we have a resource available for, God forbid, another critical incident, and that we have a resource continuing for those affected by this tragedy and those being affected by violent felonies where there is no comprehensive resources. Our plan is to seek funding in the future from Victims of Crime Act, private philanthropy, and other ideas, since this holistic team is now seen as the best in the country, winning the Victims of Crime Service Award from the Department of Justice just 2 weeks ago. We now have experts who are sought after by other communities facing critical incidents on how to provide long-term victim services. It's our goal to continue to assist to those other communities and to assist right here in our own state. With that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have Tennille Pereira here. She's the director of the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, in case you have any questions for her as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Buckley and Mr. Steinbeck. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions from the committee. I have Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and more of a statement than a question, if I may. I was involved in October 1, and when we were, trying to get our arms around the investigation, it was very comforting to see people in our community like Chief Steinbeck and Speaker Buckley and others quickly think forward and start to put together a victim advocate center, which was so needed with all the need that we had in that incident. And this bill really is very forward thinking. In a short amount of time, you guys put something together that really made a difference in people's lives that were impacted by that. And heaven forbid if we have something like this again, it's important that we have the groundwork and we lay these things in place so that we can help people that are in desperate need during difficult times. And, we've done a decent job, as you pointed out, Speaker Buckley, with some of the small victim advocates, but there's just so much need. There's just not enough providers there, and this certainly will help fill the gap. And thank you all for bringing it forward, and I'll fully support it.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I echo my colleagues' comments regarding the bill, but I do have some questions specific to the bill. Section 1, down to number E, one of the things that will happen with this is operating a call center for the purpose of providing information related to services. Since this call center will be since the center will be located in a community over 700,000, I would presume somewhere within your grounds, Speaker Buckley, would the call center be available with a toll-free number, and so that those of us who don't live in Clark County and we have horrific events happen throughout our state, unfortunately, will it have information for all services in the state, or will it be specific to services available within, say, Clark County, or how will that be operated?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the Assemblywoman. One of the things we've learned from victim services is to turn no victim away, to provide support services. So, for example, if a victim called from your part of the state and was just a victim of crime, we can easily refer them to the Victims of Crime Compensation Program, help them figure out how to recoup some of their out-of-pocket loss relating to their victimization. In paragraph 3, sub 3 on page 3, it also talks about going to communities throughout the state, as the chief mentioned, if there was a critical incident. So how we would envision that happening is Tennille and the team, right? The person from Metro, the person with Victims of Crime Comp, our behavioral health support person would all travel to the affected community. They would then work with whatever service providers are there in terms of assisting both in the short term and the long term. It would be a critical incident resource for the other parts of the state. Now, this center will have to be built up, right? And we'll have to make sure that we can secure funding to operate it. But our goal is that we would turn no victim away.
Follow-up, Madam Chair? So back to and thank you for that, back to the call center. We're hearing a lot of, we have a 211, we're looking at 988 numbers, and I'm just wondering, will it be operated 24/7? Will that phone, so people can get a resource, or if it's just in the initial planning on what this call center is going to be doing?
Yeah, thank you, Assemblywoman. Right now, we accept calls during regular business hours. If there's a critical incident, we have cell phone numbers and emergency contacts for everyone in charge of a certain function. So, for example, if there was a critical incident, Chief Steinbeck or his team would reach out to Tennille, right? We would then activate the behavioral health response, victims of crime response, and everybody on the team. We're just beginning. It would be wonderful to have a 24-hour call center, but we don't have the funding for that right now. We would work in tandem with call centers that do just general information and referral. This center is solely for victims and not general information and referral.
Thank you, and I like that no wrong door concept where people can get help if, however they find you, you can get them the right resources. So thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you. So committee members, are there any other questions from the committee at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Chief Steinbeck and Speaker Buckley. We know the good work that was done, and we appreciate everyone putting aside things and focusing on the best thing to do at that particular moment in time. And unfortunately, that incident has shown a light on some other things that happen in the state. So the one good thing that's coming out of it is we're going to have resources for other victims to be able to address what they're going through also. So it's a sort of a strange road on how we got here, but I believe the people of the state of Nevada will be much better served as we try to support these types of efforts to give folks the resources that they need to heal and to move forward. So I appreciate the work that's been done on this as we've had these conversations over the last couple of years. So committee members, I don't see any other questions at this time. So this is the hearing for Assembly Bill 481. I'll go ahead and open it up if I don't see anyone here in the room in support of AB 481. So I'll go to Zoom and broadcast services. Do we have anyone on the phone line in support of Assembly Bill 481?
If you would like to testify in support on AB 481, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one in line to testify in support on AB 481.
Thank you very much. If we could have those in opposition.
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 481, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one in line to testify in opposition to AB 481.
And if we could go to neutral, please.
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on 481, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on AB 481.
Thank you very much. So with that, Chief Steinbeck, Ms. Buckley, Mr. Armstrong, are there any closing comments before we close the hearing on Assembly Bill 481? Nope. Let the record reflect, everyone is shaking their head no. So with that, thank you all very much for being here this morning. I'll go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 481, and community members put this in the pile. This will be discussed later in the meeting. Moving on to our next bill, I believe we have Senate Bill 368. I'll go to Ms. Kaufman to begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 368 requires the issuance of bonds for environmental improvement projects for the Lake Tahoe Basin. In regards to the fiscal impact, this bill requires the issuance of not more than $4 million of the $100 million in general obligation authorized in 2009 to provide money to carry out certain environmental improvement projects included in the second phase of the environmental improvement program. This bond is required to meet the total $12 million that was included in the executive budget for the Tahoe environmental improvement projects.
Thank you very much. I believe I have Mr. Donahue available. So with that, Mr. Donahue, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Charlie Donahue, and I'm the administrator of the Division of State Lands. It's a pleasure to present Senate Bill 368 this morning. Senate Bill 368 provides for the issuance of $4 million in general obligation authority for the continuation of the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, commonly referred to as the EIP. I would like to thank the Lake Tahoe Interim Committee for sponsoring this important legislation. The Division of State Lands has been the lead coordinating agency for the Nevada share of the EIP since 1999. And Nevada's participation in the EIP continues to be a success. The EIP is a well-coordinated partnership of federal, state, and local agencies, the Washoe Tribe, and the private sector. The partnership carries out projects to protect and improve the Lake Tahoe environment and has become a national model for collaborative leadership. Nevada is a key member whose commitment to the EIP has funded in excess of 150 projects in focus areas of watersheds, habitat and water quality, forest management, and recreation. The EIP is the primary program to achieve environmental gains in the Lake Tahoe Basin. A significant amount of this work is coordinated through the Nevada Tahoe Resource Team, the state team assembled to carry out this program with representatives from the Division of State Lands, Division of State Parks, Division of Forestry, and the Department of Wildlife. The team implements projects directly as well as awards grants to EIP participating agencies. Recent project highlights include an award of 2 water quality and erosion control grants. The first grant is to Washoe County for a project in Incline Village, and the second is a grant to the Nevada Tahoe Conservation District for a project at Marla Bay and Douglas County. These are critical capital infrastructure projects that capture stormwater and treat fine sediment particles that are known to impact Lake Tahoe's clarity. These projects are implemented in coordination with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, TRPA, and the Division of Environmental Protection, NDEP, to contribute to the region's clarity goals. These 2 projects are estimated to be in excess of $3 million. Spooner Lake Front Country Phase 1 is a recreation enhancement project located at the Spooner unit of the Lake Tahoe Nevada State Park. The project includes construction of a visitor center, amphitheater, and entrance road realignment. A contract was successfully awarded in March, and construction started just yesterday. The award for this project was approximately $3.2 million, including a generous gift from the Tahoe Fund of $300,000, specifically for the amphitheater development. Phase 2 of the project is currently under design, and dedicated funding will bring that to 100% design. Park amenities in this phase will include additional trails, comfort station upgrades, picnic nodes, and a non-motorized boat launch at Spooner Lake proper. EIP bonds also fund forest restoration projects to improve ecosystem health and function and to protect the Nevada State Park from catastrophic wildfire. NDSL is currently secured approximately $250,000 in federal appropriations from the U.S. Forest Service through the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act to support fuel reduction treatments and an 85-acre fuel break on state land. The team has also been successful over the years in securing SNPLMA funds to complete EIP bonds, to complement EIP bonds, restoring forest landscape to a more resilient condition throughout the state park. In this way, the team leverages bonds as well as other funding sources to get our work done. As the agency has done in many of the previous legislative sessions since the start of the EIP, the Division of State Lands is requesting bond authority for the next round of Nevada's projects. Specifically, Senate Bill 368 authorizes the sale of $4 million in obligation bonds for the continuation of EIP projects in Lake Tahoe Basin. The activities listed in Senate Bill 368 will continue to focus on the main areas of improving water quality infrastructure, continued forest health improvement to reduce the risk of wildfire, improve habitat, and improve state-owned recreational facilities at Lake Tahoe. In addition to improving the Lake Tahoe environment, these are active capital improvement projects which contribute to a strong economy. I would also like the committee to know this request is in the governor's CIP budget. Passage of Senate Bill 368 allows the state to build upon the success of our past projects and continue moving forward with our EIP partners in protecting and restoring the Lake Tahoe Basin. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donahue. So with that, committee members, I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions from the committee. This is one that's, those of us that have been around a little bit, we're pretty familiar with how this actually works. So I've been lucky enough to be on the Lake Tahoe committee a couple of times, and now when I drive around the lake, I look at drop inlets and I know what riprap is, and you know, it took a little of the beauty out of it, but it gave me a little bit different appreciation for the lake. So I really appreciate all the education that everyone spent on making sure that I understood how important Lake Tahoe was. So, committee members, any questions of Mr. Donahue at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Mr. Donahue. So this is the hearing for Senate Bill 368. We'll go ahead and open up the hearing process. Not seeing anyone here in the room to testify on Senate Bill 368. We'll go to broadcast services. If you could open it up to those in support of Senate Bill 368, please.
Anyone wishing to testify in support on SB 368, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there's no one to testify in support on SB 368.
I know I had to catch myself too, almost said AB. So we'll go to those in opposition of Senate Bill 368.
Anyone wishing to testify in opposition to SB 368, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one in the queue to testify in opposition to SB 368.
Please open it up to neutral.
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on SB 368, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on SB 368.
Thank you very much. Mr. Donahue, any closing comments?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to say thank you for hearing the bill, and I appreciate your comments. I reflect often about many of the field trips that interim committee members were on, experienced the EIP with the Nevada Tahoe resource team, and I recall having a lot of fun afternoons up there with you as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, not seeing any other questions or comments, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Senate Bill 368, and there'll be further conversation on that later this morning. Also, that brings us to Assembly Bill 480, revises provisions governing legal services for indigent defendants. I've been informed that there's a short presentation, I hope, on Assembly Bill 480. So what I'll do is I'll go to Ms. Kaufman to open it up, and then we will proceed from there. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 480 is a budget implementation bill. This legislation is in response to the consent judgment in the Davis versus State case to address disincentives to provide effective representation for indigents, for the indigent. The Money Committee has approved general fund appropriations of $1.2 million in each year of the 2021-23 biennium to fund estimated support to 10 rural counties stipulated in the consent judgment, and place the funding in the IFC contingency account, whereupon the department could request the amount in the fund needed based upon the actual indigent defense service expenditures reported by the rural counties. And I would note that there does appear to be a conceptual amendment that's been placed on everyone's desk.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Ryba, as the director, we'll go ahead and go to you first. So good morning, please proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Carlton, members of the committee. My name is Marcy Reba, and I'm the director of the Department of Indigent Defense Services, and I have a quick introduction to this bill. The intent of AB 480 is to balance the scales of justice statewide for indigent defense. The Assembly bill proposes to create independence from the judiciary for indigent defense providers, which is already in practice in Washoe and Clark counties. Remove economic disincentive to providing effective indigent defense representation and provide clarity of public defender duties. The department believes the fiscal impact cannot be determined. Specifically in Washoe and Clark, there will be no fiscal impact as they entered into plans in 2008 complying with these requirements. In the rural counties, the counties are in the process of creating their plans, which are due on September 3rd, and they have the choice to use the department for these roles or to create a new position such as an appointed council administrator in their county or judicial district. Also, the fiscal impact would be dependent upon the maximum contribution formula. Arguably, costs related to the implementation of the Board of Indigent Defense regulations were contemplated in the creation of our department by AB 81 in 2019 as the legislature created authority to create a maximum contribution formula to determine the maximum a county may be required to pay for indigent defense services. And has already been provided for rural counties involved in Davis v. State, the ACLU lawsuit, such costs would come out of that $1.2 million that has been earmarked in the Interim Finance Committee contingency account to fund the maximum contribution. So little historical information. In 2008, the Nevada Supreme Court issued administrative orders under 80 KT 411 to provide consistency and improve indigent defense services through the state. Ultimately, Clark and Washoe counties entered plans for the provision of the indigent defense services in compliance with 80 KT 411. In these plans, Clark and Washoe created independence from the judiciary in the selection of counsel and the approval of attorneys' fees and case-related expenses, which are consistent with this bill. Thus, there'll be no fiscal impact for them. However, the rural counties were given a stay to enter a plan until such time as provisions are made by the court or the legislature for the creation of a flexible statewide approach to indigent defense service delivery that balances the need for state oversight with the need for local autonomy. With the creation of the Department of Indigent Defense Services in 2019, such a system was created. It should be noted that the Supreme Court 80 KT 411 committee never intended for a dual system of representation to be permitted in Nevada for urban versus rural courts. Within the department is the Board of Indigent Defense Services, which has adopted temporary regulations which were effective on March 2021. The regulations provide for the creation of a plan for the provision of indigent defense services in each county, similar to what was required in KT 411 back in 2008. We recommend indigent defense independence from the judiciary, as is proposed in this bill. Each plan, with the assistance of the Department of Indigent Defense Services, will set forth the county's process for selection of counsel, how they approve compensation of indigent defense providers, and how they pay and approve case-related expenses. Independence from the judiciary has been recommended by the regulations, but is not fully required without a change in the law. As directed by AB 81 in 2019, the board created a formula for the maximum contribution a county may pay for the provision of indigent defense services. This funding will assist counties in compliance with the regulation, and pursuant to this formula, counties are capped at the average of fiscal year 18 and 19 plus inflation. Like I said earlier, at the close of the department's budget, $1.2 million was earmarked in the IFC contingency account for the counties involved in the ACLU lawsuit of Davis v. State. As a quick walkthrough, sections 1 through 11 and 17 create independence from the judiciary by creating a distinction between appointment, which is a judicial function, and selection or assignment of the attorney, which should be done independently. To discuss payment of fees, approval of expert fees, and to require them to be in accordance with the plan, as is already the practice in Washoe and Clark. Such language is consistent with 80 KT 411, where the Nevada Supreme Court found that the participation by the trial judge in the appointment of counsel and in the approval of expert witness fees created an appearance of impropriety. Thus, this proposal follows the Supreme Court's recommendation that these duties should be created by an independent body. Again, the fiscal impact cannot be determined. We believe there will be no fiscal impact in Washoe and Clark because this is already in practice. And in the rural counties, they're in the process of creating their plans, which are due September 3rd. And in these plans, they have a choice as to whether to use the department in these roles or to create a new position. And the fiscal impact would be dependent upon the maximum contribution formula. Further, in Section 6, the stipulated consent judgment in Davis v. State obligated the department to recommend legislation to cure any defects which do not comply with NRS 180.320. The department is requesting to remove caps for total payments for appointed indigent defense counsel. It's believed that such caps create an economic disincentive, may not provide adequate hourly rates for counsel, and may impair the ability of the defense counsel to provide effective representation. We believe this will have no fiscal impact, as judges already have the authority to increase fees for appointed indigent defense counsel if a motion for excess fees is filed and good cause shown. Such a process, however, is time-consuming and increased costs. So we believe that Section 6 would actually streamline the process and prevent an economic disincentive. Section 13, 16, and 18 limit the duties of county and state public defenders to the definition of indigent defense services as provided in NRS 180.004. It removes duties associated with 62D.100. This is where you represent a parent in a juvenile case. This is outside the definition of indigent defense services, and there's generally a conflict anyway because public defenders are representing the juvenile pursuant to NRS 62D.300. It also removes duties related to representation in 432B or child welfare cases, as this falls outside the definition of indigent defense cases, and appointment in those cases may cause a conflict in later criminal matters. At this point, the fiscal impact cannot be determined for those sections. The work falls outside the definition of indigent defense services, so it is not subject to repayment pursuant to that maximum contribution formula. Finally, Section 15, we are proposing an amendment. We're proposing to limit to counties less than 100,000 to require that the compensation for the public defender be in compliance with the regulations of the Board of Indigent Defense Services. We are no longer requesting that subsection 6 in Section 15 be deleted, and we have no objection to the friendly amendment from the Clark County Defenders Union. As for this, the fiscal impact cannot be determined. Again, in Washoe and Clark, there is no fiscal impact because they have benefited from parity for public defenders for years. However, in the rural counties, the fiscal impact will be dependent upon the application of the maximum contribution formula. And with that, it concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I feel like I got transported to judiciary for just about a moment. But with that, I will open it up to any committee members that have any questions at this time. Thank you very much, Ms. Reba, for putting that in non-lawyer language for the Ways and Means Committee. We really do appreciate the work done on that so that we could wrap our arms around this. It's an ongoing process that we need to get through. Any questions? Not seeing any questions. So with that, since the presenter did bring up the proposed amendment, I'd like to go ahead and bring up those that are proposing the amendment, have a little bit more comprehensive conversation about it. I know this is a little bit different than we normally do things, but since this has been thoroughly discussed, and I hope it's still worked out and stays worked out till the end of this meeting. So with that, Mr. Pirro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Pirro from the Clark County Public Defender's Office. We'd like to thank Director Reba for accepting our amendment. The amendment does, as Director Reba said, provides for pay parity. Both our unions in Clark and Washoe have fought for pay parity, and pay parity is very essential to making sure you have quality candidates on both sides of the aisle and making sure the scales remain balanced. So that is what the amendment does, and we're grateful that they accept it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mr. Pirro at this time? Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, you support the bill as amended, or if the amendment is accepted?
John Pirro for the record. Yes, Assemblyman Roberts, we do.
Okay, thank you.
If I may just briefly comment on one other thing. As Director Reba said in Section 1, when we're talking about independence from the judiciary, that is very important for a public defense system to have. We have had issues throughout the country and even here in Clark County, so I just want to take us back quite a few years. Back in the day, long before my time at the Clark County Public Defender's Office, we used to assign baby lawyers to serious cases, murder, sex assault, and the county got the pantsuit off them for about $5 million when Jerry Spence came from Wyoming and filed suit in a case called Roberto Miranda. During that suit, the National Legal Aid and Defenders Association came into Clark County and did a full review on our office. What they found was that we had judicial capture, which means we did not have adequate independency from the judiciary. Our attorneys at that time were more interested in pleasing the judge and keeping the judge happy than providing zealous representation that is required. And as Vice Chair Monroe Moreno has observed over her career, she has seen attorneys that, for lack of a better word, are terrible in court and attorneys that are good. And it's important that you have more good attorneys than terrible attorneys, because that's what adequately preserves the system that we hold so dear.
Okay, thank you. You almost started to testify like you were in judiciary, but you pulled yourself back. I watched you. You did really good, so I do appreciate that. I don't work on the other side of that wall. So, committee members, any other questions? So with that, typically, we would have support, opposition, and neutral, and if they had a problem with the bill, they would have been in opposition. It seems as though the parties have come together before they got in the room and have come to some agreement. Everyone is willing to look at this amendment going forward. So with that, this is the public hearing for Assembly Bill 480. We will go ahead and open it up. Those that were in the room have already shared their testimony. We'll open it. Oh, please come back. One more.
Thank you, Chair Carlton. Kendra Birchie with the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. Just for the record, we want to voice our support and again thank the Department of Indigent Defense Services for bringing forward this bill and working with us. As you heard Mr. Pirro indicate, this does have fiscal impact if we don't comply with the requirements and the mandates to ensure that we have an independent judicial system of public defense versus the judiciary because of the dramatic impact that the lawsuits can have. You'll see all across the nation that there's headlines of justice in jeopardy because different public defenders agencies are being sued or don't have the resources. So we believe that this will provide equal justice to all Nevadans, not just those who are in Washoe County or in Clark County. And we urge your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So with that, broadcast services, if we could go ahead and go to the phone lines to those who are in support of Assembly Bill 480.
If you would like to testify in support on AB 480, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 663, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Chair Carlton and members of the committee. My name is John McCormick, JOHN-MCCORMICK. I'm the Assistant Court Administrator at the Nevada Supreme Court's Administrative Office of the Courts, and I'm calling in support today of AB 480. As Director Rabbit indicated, a number of the elements of this bill have been called for in various Supreme Court orders and through our Indigent Defense Commission, which recently we discontinued with the arrival of the Department of Indigent Defense Services on the scene. But we do support this measure as a way to continue to improve the delivery of indigent defense services in the state.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Broadcast services, anyone else in support, please?
Caller with the last 3 digits, 312, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Amy Coffey, AMY-COFFEE. I am a Clark County Special Public Defender, and I'm a member of the Clark County Defenders Union. I would just like to echo the statements of Mr. Pirro and Ms. Birchie, and we fully support this bill. Thank you. And I would note, I originally signed in opposition, but because of the acceptance of the amendment, I am now testifying in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your clarification. Others in support, broadcast services.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 793, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good
morning. My name is Nadia Hojat, Nadiahojjat, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Clark County Defenders Union. I'm a Chief Deputy Public Defender, and I've done trial and appellate work on behalf of indigent defendants for 10 years. I support this bill with the amendment. I had previously signed up to oppose the bill, but with the adoption of the amendment, I do support the bill. I believe that it will help make sure that we have effective and zealous indigent defense here in Nevada. I believe that with the amendment adopted, this bill will make sure that we have pay parity and that we are able to recruit strong candidates and attorneys who can represent individuals and make sure that their rights are protected here in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in support, please?
Caller with the last 3 digits, 091. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Kara Simmons. That's Kara-Simmons, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Clark County Defenders Union. I'm a deputy public defender, and I've been with the office working on behalf of indigent defendants for over 3.5 years. I had also previously signed in opposition of this bill, but now support it with the amendment. Our job is not only vitally important to the criminal justice system, but it is constitutionally mandated. Imagine a world where a poor, mentally ill person could not receive the same zealous advocacy as someone who is financially well off. As someone who grew up poor, I know how important it is to have someone on your side, someone who is empathetic and fighting for you. That is why I went to law school to be a public defender, and that's why I came to this office. That is why we need to keep pay parity with the prosecutors, and we need to offer the same benefits to graduates so that we can get people who are dedicated to public service, because what we do is really hard. As of today, I have 169 open cases and 1,297 closed cases, and I'm someone who's only been here for 3.5 years. Our dedication to our clients is what brings us into this office outside normal working hours, what drives us to stay late into the night and come in on the weekends. We need to make sure we keep quality attorneys here that are dedicated to this level of service, which is why I am testifying in support of the bill as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else in support?
Caller with the last 3 digits, 299. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning. My name is Robson Hauser, Robson I'm a deputy public defender with the Clark County Public Defender's Office. I've been there for the last 5.5 years. I'm also calling to testify in support of the bill as amended. I believe it is important to continue to attract talented attorneys to our office, or as Mr. Pirro would put it, we might get the pantsuit off of us again in the future. Establishing pay parity with the district attorney's office is one of the most crucial elements to attracting that talent, and therefore I do support the bill as amended. I had previously signed in opposition. I would now like to change that to support. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. And if we do have more folks in support, ditto is just fine with us right now. So anyone else in support of the bill at this time?
Caller with the last 3 digits, 165. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is David Westbrook, DavidWestbrook. I'm Vice President of the Clark County Defenders Union and the Chief Deputy Public Defender in the Clark County Public Defender's Office. Ditto. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony. With that, Broadcast Services, the next person in support.
Chair, there are no more callers in support on AB 480.
Thank you very much. If we could go to opposition, please.
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 480, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one in the queue to testify in opposition to AB 480.
Thank you very much, Broadcast Services. If we could go to neutral, please.
If you would like to testify in neutral on AB 480, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there is no one to testify in neutral on AB 480.
Thank you very much. So with that, Ms. Reba, did you have any closing comments?
No, just thank you for hearing the bill this morning.
Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for working with everyone. It's nice when an amendment switches all the opposition to support, and everybody can walk out of the room arm in arm, and stay that way until it gets out of the assembly, please, okay? Thank you very much. We will go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 480, and committee members, you'll be seeing that one again soon. Our last bill in front of us today is Assembly Bill 482. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Kaufman, and then we will proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 482 prohibits the Secretary of State from renewing a state business license if the state controller has notified the Secretary of State that the person who holds the state business license owes a debt to the state agency and that has been assigned to the state controllers for collection, and the person has not satisfied the debt, entered into agreement with the state controller for payment of the debt, or demonstrated the state controller that the debt was not valid. With regard to the fiscal impact, this was introduced by the Committee on Ways and Means on May 13th, 2021. Since this bill was introduced on May 13th, fiscal notes have not been fully received due to the timing for that. However, the Secretary of State has provided fiscal staff with an email yesterday indicating that they did not anticipate a fiscal impact.
With that, do we have anyone from the Secretary of State's office available at this time?
Good morning, Chair Carlton and committee members. I'm Kim Parandi, Deputy Secretary of State for Commercial Recordings on behalf of the Secretary of State. I do have some comments prepared. I don't know if you want me to go forward with those right now or just answer your questions at the moment.
Why don't you go ahead and proceed with your comments? Let's get those on the record. And then we'll go ahead and have, we have another person willing to, wishing to make comment. And then we'll open it up to the committee for questions. So if you could, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us here today to discuss AB 482. As was just mentioned, this bill came to us just a few days ago, was kind of a surprise to our office. And while overall the Secretary absolutely supports the concept of preventing debt write-off and preventing those owing money to the state from continuing to profit from state contracts and such, we will be testifying in neutral on this bill because of the way it's drafted. Our concerns center around the intent to not renew a license instead of placing them on an administrative hold immediately until their debt is resolved. Another concern is that statute currently provides no authority to the Secretary of State to act in a regulatory manner with regards to refusing to issue a license. Furthermore, we question the liability of not renewing a license for, let's say, a corporation with many shareholders because of one person's debt. The office currently has a way to provide information to the Controller's Office regarding state business licenses, and we understand from the Controller's Office this process is somewhat new and there has not been a lot of volume. Therefore, we can manage this new legislation without cost to our office, and we will absolutely partner with the Controller's Office on this bill. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And as is normal, this time of session, bills do pop up and come forward, and we know that you're going to need some time to digest it. And I hope with some of the conversations this morning, there'll be a little bit better understanding of the problem that has arisen and how, and this proposed solution. And I appreciate the Secretary remaining in neutral for right now as we move forward. So thank you very much for sharing your information. With that, I have Mr. McAllister in front of us. Mr. McAllister, if you would like to go ahead and proceed, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Rusty McAllister with the Nevada State AFL-CIO. I am also an appointed member of the Division of Industrial Relations Advisory Board. This bill, I had talked to Assemblywoman Carlton about this issue a while back. Each quarter when we meet, we are faced with a report from the DIR of those outstanding fines or penalties that they have issued to employers that have not been collected, that they refuse to pay, or they've just chosen not to pay. And each quarter, we're asked to approve write-offs for this debt, because it may have been for an extended period of time, and so we're just asked to write it off. And we've been faced with this I've been on this committee now for several years, and it's not gotten any better. We are continually faced with these write-offs. So we had asked the DIR, what can we do to solve this? And so we met with the DIR and representatives, and also with representatives from the state controller's office. When these debts get to a certain point, they submit them from the DIR over to the controller's office to attempt collection. The problem is they're not having a lot of success in many cases getting collections on these fines either. To give you an idea it's not like we're talking about a little bit of money. I've got a list here of the DIR's uninsured employers claim account with aged receivables. So these are, and it breaks it down from the claims that are 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and 5 or plus years. All total, they've asked us to write off $20,520,000 in fines. Just this last meeting, we were asked to write off $1,035,000, submit $1,035,000 in write-offs. That was for 213 businesses. The problem that we have kind of addressed or looked at in trying to do this bill, or this trying to come to resolve here, is many of those businesses that we've been asked to write off are still in business. They're still doing business in the state of Nevada. They're not paying their fines. They're not being collected, but they keep getting their business license renewed. And when we talked to the controller's office, they said maybe that was an opportunity for us to put some teeth in this, to collect these these fines by withholding their business license, or as the representative from the Secretary of State, if it means just suspending it for a period of time until they pay their fines, whatever you guys as the legislature deem the appropriate means. We just feel bad every time that we're asked to write off this debt and send it to the Board of Examiners as a write-off. This is money that the state could use, and at the same time, we're tired of seeing these businesses stay in business, doing business here in the state with no ramifications. And with that, Madam Chair, I think that pretty much explains what our concerns are.
And thank you very much, Mr. McAllister, and thank you for having this issue bubble up. I know years ago when I was at the other end of the building, we had problems with people paying their fines. And I just want to make sure that it's perfectly clear. These are fines that are associated with workers' compensation cases where workers were either put in harm's way and or hurt. So this isn't just an administrative type issue. It's my understanding and my experience that it takes a lot to get a fine in workers' comp in this state. So if you could just make sure everyone understands exactly, that process and what those ramifications, why those fines are there. So it's not just a simple, you didn't fill out the paperwork correctly. These are serious fines that go along with serious issues.
Madam Chair, Rusty McAllister for the record. The amount of the write-offs, like just in this last report that we were asked to write off, this over $1,032,000, 213 businesses. This comes from OSHA in Las Vegas, OSHA in Reno, workers' comp for Northern Nevada, and workers' comp in Southern Nevada, both in premium, where they haven't paid their workers' comp premiums, or administrative fines for workers' compensation. So it is a and across the board in the state, not just in southern Nevada or northern, all corners of the state, and it deals with workers' compensation and OSHA, both.
And just to be clear, and so that the committee understands that if workers' comp premium is not paid and someone gets hurt on the job, there's nothing there for that worker going forward, and that's how they end up in this system. So if you would clarify that.
Madam Chair, for the record, Rusty McAllister, that is correct. If there is no workers' comp premium being paid, if somebody gets injured, they're going to be referred to the uninsured employer's account, which is paid for by all the other employers in the state of Nevada that are actually paying their bills, paying their workers' compensation premium, or carrying that insurance. They are required to put money into this workers' uninsured employer's account, and that helps these workers in the event that they get stranded because their employer didn't carry insurance.
So with that, I just wanted to make sure the committee members, and some who may not have been around workers' comp or OSHA through the Commerce and Labor Committee or in other committees, I wanted to make sure that you had all that background information on how this came to be and the discussion points that were around it. So I'd be happy to open it up for questions from committee members at this time, and also to our representative from the Secretary of State's office. You've now heard the testimony, so you may have a little bit more information on this. I guess the comment that was made earlier about there possibly being another avenue rather than just not renewing the business license, I'm not going to put you on the spot at this moment in time. I'd like you to consider the things that have brought up, and I will ask that you and Mr. McAllister have a conversation about this, but we feel that it's important we ask everyone else to pay their fines and fees, and we just had a bill last night about speeding tickets and people not paying that and the things that happen, so there needs to be consequences for those who don't pay their fines, and specifically fines for doing something wrong to the state. So hopefully we can continue the conversation and go from there. So, did you have anything from our representative from the Secretary?
Thank you, Chair Carlton. I do appreciate that, and we absolutely will have a conversation with Mr. McAllister and kind of work out the kinks. So I think our concern, again, we're supportive of the concept and we understand the problem. There's just some loopholes in the way it's written. So if we can work through those, then we're happy. Thank you.
And we appreciate everyone's assistance. We share the information that we have when we move forward, and we want to make sure that everything gets addressed as we address this. So, any other questions? I'll go to Ms. Gorlow first, and then I'll go to Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I was just kind of curious, what is the average fine that a business owes? You mentioned there was over $1 million that we had to write off and over 200 businesses. So approximately, what is that average that they owe?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Assemblywoman Gorlow. Let me pull this up right here real quick, and I'll just give you when you say an average, I can just go down the list here of this $1,035,000. It ranges from, one business here has $31,819 in fines. Others have as low as $135. It looks like a good chunk of them are $500 fines. 500, 1,000, 500, 1,000. Most of them are $500 to $1,000 fines.
Thank you. That just kind of lets me know that these aren't exorbitant fines that these people aren't paying. Cumulatively, it's a lot of money, but individual businesses, this is something that I think they could definitely be paying off. So thank you very much.
So with that, I'll go to Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just curiosity on the fine standpoint, is there an appeal process? So they assess a fine, or the board or whoever assesses the fine, and is there a subsequent appeal process? And then would would it go to the state treasurer's office, would be notified once that appeals process is exhausted, or what would be the process for that? And then it would trigger the lack of renewal for the license. Just trying to understand it.
Madam Chair, to Assemblyman Roberts, there is an appeal process to these fines. Those appeals are conducted through the Division of Industrial Relations. Once they've gone through their appeals and the fine has been withheld or imposed, then the Division of Industrial Relations will, to best of my knowledge, invoice them with the amount that's fined. And if they can't collect that, ultimately then down the road, they submit that to the controller's office in an attempt to collect the debt.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer and appreciate the question, Madam Chair.
Welcome, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Hafen, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, we just talked about these are all, it sounds like workers' comp and OSHA, but it wasn't very clear in here where that was. I know it talks about agencies under NRS 353C. Could you just point to me where it limits this to the workers' comp and OSHA fines?
Madam Chair, to Assemblyman Hafen, the way that I read the bill, it does not specify out specifically workers' compensation or OSHA violations for the fines for those. It basically states that if you owe a debt to an agency within the state of Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, then the controller would be responsible for trying to collect that.
Mr. Hafen, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then my other question is more of a procedural question. Hypothetically speaking, if they move locations and they didn't know they had this fine, when they go to renew their business license, would they have the opportunity to, like the $135 one, just pay the fee online or however that would work through the Secretary of State's office at that time that they're renewing so they could renew?
And if I could, Mr. McAllister, I'll address that one. So if you look at under subsection 1, item B, entered into an agreement for the payment of the debt. If they go to renew their license, the debt is larger than they can handle. If they enter into a payment plan for the debt, then they would be allowed to renew their license. That way we would have an agreement. We don't want to necessarily put people out of business. We just want them to fulfill their responsibility in paying their fines. So we would give them an opportunity to set up a payment plan to be able to address that. If it was a small fine, they could possibly do it. And we backfill credit card fees for the Secretary of State all the time. They could put that fine on their credit card, and or they could set, in case of the $31,000 fine that Mr. McAllister referred to, if they wanted to set up a payment plan during the process and then renew their license and keep up with their payment plan. As long as they stayed current on the payment plan, when they went to renew again, they would be in compliance and be able to renew their license. So we give people an opportunity to make payments if it is a large amount on a fine. But once they've been through, in the workers' comp case, the appeals process, they would be very well aware of what their responsibilities are. But yes, this is for all agencies, because we know in other agencies there might be this, and the accountability and responsibility of paying your fines, we believe, should be addressed. We don't do fines on the honor system. Sure. Mr. Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree with you on that. I do want to be able to collect these fines. My concern was, though, is under the payment plan, that goes through the state controller's office. And so now we're going to the Secretary of State. And so I just want to ensure that there's going to be some interaction so we don't interrupt the business. And, you know, I'm just trying to work through the weeds here because the payment plan goes to the state controller's office, but now we're integrating the Secretary of State's office. And so I just want to make sure agencies are communicating with each other and working together to collect these fines and fees. And if we need a payment plan, get those established.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haven. Any response, Mr. McAllister?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Assemblyman Hafen. My understanding, and certainly it's not my role to speak on behalf of the Division of Industrial Relations, but I will say that during our committee meetings, we did have the State Controller's Office come, representatives from their office come, and there was a lot of coordination, and there is a lot of coordination between the DIR and the State Controller's Office in trying to collect these fines or these debt.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, if I might. First, Mr. McAllister, you just mentioned coordination between the DIR and the Comptroller's Office on collecting debt. Was there any real coordination between those two and the Secretary of State's office? Because what I'm hearing is that I'm not seeing the agency that you're really affecting. I'm not sure they were consulted. So was there any consulting with the Secretary of State before this bill happened to see how maybe this problem could be fixed without legislation?
Mr. McAllister?
Madam Chair, Assemblywoman Titus, again, I don't work for the Division of Industrial Relations, so I don't know what coordination, if there was, between the DIR, the Controller's Office, and the Secretary of State's office. I'm not privy to that. Those discussions would have taken place out of my purview.
And Dr. Titus, if I could address that, because this bill is a Committee on Ways and Means bill, the issue was brought to the chair. The chair shared the information with legal. Legal sent the bill out. It's been moving very quickly. We have the Secretary of State's office here. There will be continued conversation moving forward. This was an option that was presented in order to be able to hold folks accountable. This isn't that time. We wanted to make sure that we got it out there for people to have the conversation about and then move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So follow up on that. So as this conversation then continues, I absolutely agree that we need to have a process of holding people accountable and picking up these bad debts. We hear about this every session, so it has to have some teeth, and I absolutely appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear that the conversation is going to continue, because sometimes we just need a template to work forward to see what really will work to help to solve these problems. So definitely appreciate that. It's a start, and then we need to be able to make sure that there's communication between the Comptroller and then obviously the Secretary of State's office, and happy to hear you're open to making this work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity for the question. As I look at Section 2, subsection 5, it appears there's already a relationship in place where it states that the State Controller shall notify the licensing agency if the licensee does not pay the debt that has been assigned to the State Controller for collection, enter into an agreement for the payment of the debt pursuant to NRS 353C.130. So it appears to me that was already existing language in NRS, so the relationship should be there with the controller and the licensing agencies already even before this bill. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, my understanding is that that's already current statute. This is to help specify that the Secretary of State's office would be the ones who would not renew a license. I'm assuming that there's, in the state, that there's other forms of licensees that are not controlled by the Secretary of State's office or licensed by the Secretary of State's office. So this specifies the Secretary of State with regards to agencies. So that's the best I can interpret it to.
Ms. Monroe Moreno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And also in existing language in NRS, when you go down to subsection 8 of that same section, that the State Controller shall verify with the Secretary of State the information related to the state business license for each licensee. So basically, this bill would just give more teeth to what we already have in statute that should be going, and the communications between the agencies already exist.
Thank you. All right, I consider that more of a comment than a question at this time. So, with that, committee members, are there any other questions of Mr. McAllister and our representative from the Secretary of State's office? Did we have someone wishing to be
Yes,
recognized?
I just
Yes.
have one follow-up, if I may. The current statute, I don't have it in front of me, but my recollection in reading it is that the Secretary of State's, while that language is there, it applies specifically to regulatory agencies, and that's why the Secretary of State's office has not been doing this up until now. So we will work with them. We'll figure out a way to get past all of those concerns and see how we can make this work.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. McAllister.
Madam Chair, if I might, this would probably be a whole lot more proficient in managing this language in this bill if the Secretary of State's office worked and conversed directly with the head of the Division of Industrial Relations, Victoria Carrion, and the Controller's office, as opposed to having, just your Joe average citizen here as your intermediary. I'm sure that they can work on language. Each of them has legal counsel to work on language that would work and be beneficial for all three divisions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McAllister. We have a blank black screen on the right of our Zoom. I'm not sure if there's someone there wishing to be recognized. It's hard to tell. Is there a Ms. Tobler or someone trying to zoom in? Let me check my list to see if any of the names match, because reading that far away doesn't work. Lorraine Tooker? I believe there's a technical issue.
Good morning. Good
there.
morning. This is Lorraine. I'm a staff member of the Cancer Registry, and I was just zooming in as a spectator.
Okay, all right, good. We just wanted to make sure.
Sorry about
who we
that.
had- No, that's quite all right. We wanted to make sure that if it was something that we needed to address, we were there. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. McAllister. Thank you to our representative from the Secretary of State's office. We'll go ahead and make sure we put the right people in the right Zoom room to have conversations about this moving forward, to be able to address the issues of these dollars being written off from the state rather than coming to the state. So with that, seeing no other questions or comments from any other committee members at this time, I believe we can go ahead and open it up to the phone lines. This is the hearing for Assembly Bill 482, broadcast services. Do we have anyone in support of Assembly Bill 482?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 482, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no one to testify in support on AB 482.
Thank you very much. If we could go to those in opposition.
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 482, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 166. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Barry Duncan, Barryduncan. Chair Carlton, members of the committee, Barry Duncan on behalf of the Nevada Taxpayers Association. I apologize. An issue just arose with some language pertaining to the bill this morning, or I would have notified you earlier. The concern pertains to Section 1, Line 16 of the bill, 353040, where debt means a tax fee, fine, or other obligation. This would mean that, as our understanding, under our understanding currently, that a taxpayer petitioning for redetermination of an audit deficiency would lose their business license. That is our concern pertaining to the bill. We certainly believe it is wholly appropriate that any individual or company that owns a fine through DIR and other agencies should be obligated to pay those funds. As I said, our concern pertains solely to the language and the issue I just spoke to. Again, Barry Duncan, thank you for your time and consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And thank you, Mr. Duncan. So your concern is that the definition under 353C.040 includes the word tax.
Well, that would be correct. That would be correct in the sense that our concern would be that somebody that would be petitioning for redetermination, as they are for an audit deficiency, as they're entitled to under law, would lose their business license as the bill is currently drafted.
So if I could clarify with you, Mr. Duncan, if that was never turned over to the state comptroller's office, it would not happen. So if they were in negotiations with the tax department and there was an appeal process and they were working through that redetermination, their information wouldn't have been shared with the comptroller's office, so therefore the first domino would not fall moving forward. Would you understand that the same way?
Again, we would not, but I would be happy to further meet with the comptroller's office to make sure I have a more complete understanding of that. As I said, this concern just arose this morning.
And thank you very much, and we appreciate you sharing it, and we want to make sure we don't put anyone in the system that doesn't happen. That's why we, the safeguard of being, having your information turned over to the comptroller's office as a bad debt would be the first step. So if they never made that first step, but we will clarify, we'll get someone in tax and we'll clarify that issue before we move forward. But thank you for bringing it to light. And if you would please do the chair a favor, if you would send an email to me with your concerns so that I have something actually in writing to put in the file as we move forward, I would appreciate that, and I'll make sure that staff gets it and we can go from there. It's always good to have these comments in writing if possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Duncan. So with that, broadcast services, could we go to anyone else in opposition, please?
Chair, there are no more callers in opposition to AB 482.
And thank you. Could we go to those in neutral?
Anyone wishing to testify in neutral on AB 482, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral in the queue to testify on AB 482.
All right. With that, are there any closing comments either from the Secretary of State's office or from Mr. McAllister? Not seeing any closing comments. Thank you all very much for your flexibility as things move quickly through this process and issues pop up. So with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 482, and we'll make sure that a little more work gets done so that everyone is comfortable moving forward. So committee members, let's go ahead and go back and do work session on some of the bills that we have heard today. Let's go back. The first bill that we had was Assembly Bill 471. Revises provisions relating to the system of reporting information relating to cancer and other neoplasms. I'll turn it over to Ms. Kaufman to go through through the basics, and we'll go from there. Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 471 was heard today in Assembly Ways and Means. This is a budget implementation bill, and this is to provide for various fees related to radiation machines and mammography in order to satisfy some solvency issues related to the cancer registry budgets.
Thank you very much. Committee members, are there any questions or comments at this time? Not seeing any. This is a bill from Ways and Means, so this would be a do pass. I would accept a motion to do pass from Ms. Monroe Moreno, second from Ms. Benitez Thompson. Any questions or comments on the motion? Dr. Titus?
Madam Chair, thank you. I will be a yes to get this out of committee, but reserve my right to change. Thank you.
Okay. With that, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, currently, it passes unanimously of the members present. So with that, we'll move forward. I was going to assign this to Dr. Titus, but since we're not sure where she's going to be on the floor, you can't have someone who might be in opposition handling the bill. I'll go ahead and ask Ms. Monroe Moreno to handle it. Okay? You're welcome. So with that, we can go to Assembly Bill 479.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 479 creates the position of Chief Investment Officer as a member of the executive staff of the Public Employees Retirement within NRS 286-160. Tina Liss was the individual who presented this bill, and there were no individuals who were testified in support, opposition, or neutral.
Okay, so with that, any questions or comments on Assembly Bill 479? Not seeing any, this would be a do pass, so I'll accept a do pass from Ms. Monroe Moreno. A second from Ms. Benitez Thompson. Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. I'll ask Ms. Peters to handle this one on the floor, please. Thank you very much, Ms. Peters. With that, moving on to Assembly Bill 481, Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill, 481, did you say?
Assembly Bill 481.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 481 requires the Division of Child and Family Services, the Department of Health and Human Services to the extent money is available for the purposes and in collaboration with persons and entities that advocate for the need of victims to designate a statewide center to provide assistance to victims. This particular bill is in tandem with the Money Committee's decisions to provide funding for 2 positions for the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center. The individual who testified on this bill was Ross Armstrong, along with Barbara Buckley and Chief Steinbeck. There were no individuals that testified in support, opposition, or neutral, and there are no amendments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaufman. So any questions or comments on this particular item? Not seeing any, so this would also be a do pass. So the chair would accept a motion to do pass from Ms. Howdigy, a second from Mr. Roberts. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. I'll ask Ms. Howdigy to handle this one on the floor, please. Oops, sorry about that, guys. Folders and microphones don't get along. So with that, I believe we can go to Senate Bill 368. I'm doing them in the order we heard them. That's why it's a little disjointed. That's how I stacked them up.
Assembly Bill 368 requires the issuance of $4 million in environmental improvement project bonds for the Lake Tahoe Basin. The individual who testified on this bill was Charlie Donahue from the Division of State Lands, and there were no individuals who testified in support, opposition, or neutral on this bill.
Thank you very much. So with that, committee members, are there any questions or comments on this bill, Senate Bill 368? Seeing none, I would accept a motion to do pass from Ms. Monroe Moreno, second from Ms. Benitez Thompson. Seeing no one else wishing to be recognized, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Mr. Watts, I'm going to hand this one back to you, okay? You're welcome. We've got that one, and then I believe Assembly Bill 480.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 480 removes limitations in existing law that specify an attorney other than a public defender who is appointed to represent or defend a person during any stage of a criminal proceeding is entitled to receive certain fees for his services. AB 480 also revises provisions relating to claims for compensation and expenses made by certain attorneys. This is a budget implementation bill. This legislation is in response to the consent judgment in the Davis versus State case to address disincentives to provide effective representation for indigents. The individual who testified in this and presented this bill was Marcy Reba, and there were 7 individuals who testified in support of this bill, and no individuals in opposition or neutral. There were 2 conceptual amendments that were suggested for this bill.
Committee members, are there any questions on the bill and or the amendments? It seemed as though the amendments solved the problem, got everybody on the same page. So without seeing any other questions, the chair would include the proposed amendment, so the motion would be an amend and do pass. I'll accept that motion from Ms. Benitez Thompson, a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Dr. Titus in opposition. So with that, passes the committee, and I will take this floor statement and be very nice to Chair Yeager to make sure he can back me up. So with that, motion passes. So I believe we are good there. So we can close that one. And as I said, Assembly Bill 482, we'll put some folks in a Zoom room and we'll make sure that are doing exactly what we think we need to do to address unpaid fines in the state. So with that, committee members, I believe that takes care of our business this morning. We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Broadcast services, do we have anyone on the phone lines for public comment this morning?
Anyone wishing to make public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 121, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin. Caller 121, please press star 6 to unmute.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Sam DeWitt, SAMDEWITT. I'm calling from Compassion and Choices Action Network and representing thousands of people suffering from incurable disease who are waiting on movement on Assembly Bill 351. Every day we refresh this committee's agenda, hoping and waiting for AB 351 to be heard. It has been nearly a month since our bill was scheduled and removed from the agenda just hours before the hearing. According to the bill file, the fiscal note has been removed.
so we do not understand why this committee is holding this bill from being voted on. We have spent decades crafting this legislation, worked with stakeholders all over the state to fine-tune it, and our coalition's recent poll shows that 73% of Nevadans across all political, religious, gender, and age lines want this option for qualified patients. There are terminally ill people who may not live to see the next legislative session who are going to suffer between now and 2023 without this option being available. Members, Madam Chair, we plead with you to release or vote on this bill and let democracy play out. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and your service to the state of Nevada.
Broadcast Services, are there any other callers under public comment?
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no more callers at this time.
Thank you very much. So committee members, that accomplishes our work for this morning. We have a joint meeting this evening with Senate Finance, so therefore today I will be adjourning, but that'll be very rare in the near future. We will typically recess so that we can come back and continue work. But today we will adjourn since we're going into a separate meeting this evening. So with that, we are adjourned.